The Hangar Z podcast welcomes Dave Wuertz, peer support manager of PHI Air Medical.
But let me turn it back to mental health for a second there, because there's a tender trap in that. Because we love the dopamine hit that we get from these things. We are all, it's probably a terrible way to put it, but we're all adrenaline junkies when it comes to that sort of thing. We wouldn't be sitting here if we weren't. But I think sometimes that becomes too much our happy place. I know it did for me, where a few years ago, well, a number of years ago, the only time I felt like I had any control over my life was I was sitting in a helicopter 2,000 feet in the air with somebody trying to actively die on me. I could control that. And that's what kind of pushed me to getting my own journey of getting back to normal.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts and partnered with Vertical Valor Plus. Today's episode is a powerful and deeply human conversation centered on service, trust, and taking care of one another in some of the most demanding environments imaginable. Our guest is Dave Wuertz, manager of peer support for PHI Air Medical. Dave's story is one shaped by a lifetime of service in the medical field, starting with an EMT class in college and influenced even earlier by his father's volunteer work on an ambulance. From those early experiences, Dave went on to become a paramedic, a trainer, and eventually an air medical flight nurse. Along the way, he also became a founding member of the peer support program at PHI Air Medical, helping build a culture that recognizes mental wellness as mission critical. In this episode, we dive into why peer support matters so much in public service, especially in air medical, why proactive peer support is far more effective than reactive approaches, and why trust is the cornerstone of any successful program. Dave shares impactful incidents from his time as an air medical flight crew member and from his work supporting others, offering real-world perspective on what these crews face every day. We also discuss the mindset of 4 to go, 1 to say no, and how speaking up can make the difference between a safe mission and a tragic outcome. You'll also hear an overview of PHI Air Medical's nationwide footprint and the scale of responsibility carried by its teams across the country. And as a special connection for longtime listeners, we talk about Dave's long-standing professional relationship with one of our favorite guests, Dr. Tanya Glenn, and how that collaboration reinforces the importance of mental wellness training done right. This is an honest, meaningful conversation about caring for the caregivers, and one you won't want to miss. Thank you to all of our sponsors and our loyal listeners. Please take a minute to like, share, and subscribe to the Hangar Z podcast. Thank you to our sponsors, Summit Aviation, Centum, and Metro Aviation.
Welcome to the Hangar Z podcast, brought to you by Vertical Helicasts. The Hangar Z podcast is the first and only podcast dedicated to promoting and exploring the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation.
Still southbound, skidding to a stop. Stand by here. Looks like you're getting ready to bail. Heads up, guys, bailing. Okay, the guy, he's running through the house, jumping the fence, threw the shotgun, threw something out. Grabbing the shotgun. Don't go over that fence. Don't go over that fence. Grab the shotgun again. He is armed. Stay there. Hold your position.
I do not pretend to know I know how to fly a helicopter, okay? But it's always fascinated me. And I was one of those, I was never a trunk monkey. I was never somebody who just wanted to get in and be quiet. And so I would be the guy that would pester you about why are you doing this, or tell me about what this VOR means, or what that, or, did you hear that on the radio, or what, but I wouldn't touch stuff because I know I'd get backhanded. And most of my time was in a 135, so you could fly up front. So that was kind of the lure to me. I've always been interested in it. So that was kind of what attracted me to the aviation side of medicine, and the fact that you get super sick people.
Yeah.
It's an amazing blend, not just doing scene responses, but going to these super sick patients in the hospital. And what we try to do is to bring the ICU to this tiny community hospital, that has 35 beds. and take these really complex, sick patients out of there to a big teaching hospital.
Yeah. So because we have a lot of people that listen and watch outside of public safety, some might not understand why you just said that. I understand. John understands. Most of our listeners do. When you said, well, I wanted to go there because you get the really sick people. So talk about that statement and why you said that. I mean, was it the challenge? Was it that it tests your skills? I mean, those people are going to be there either way, but
Sure.
You wanted to be involved in that. Talk about that a little bit more so people really understand your point of view in that.
I think I was telling somebody the other day that for me, the medicine was almost secondary. It's the head trip of being able to walk into abject chaos and calm the seas, and you don't get that. You don't get that in an ICU. You don't get it in an ER. You get it in an ambulance, but sometimes your skills are truncated. You're not allowed to do certain things. And in the EMS world, in the emergency medical service world, flying is looked at as sort of the pinnacle of not only skill set in care, but the sickest patients. And I think I've always been somebody who wanted to push themselves and learn more, and the being able to do that in an environment. I mean, you could easily describe what we do as doing critical care medicine, high-level critical care medicine in a flying telephone booth 2,000 feet in the air with bad lighting.
The bad lighting is really important too, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, in every sense. I mean, like even in an ambulance, you can still, there's smells you can hear. You can't hear your patient in a running helicopter. So you really have to develop a skill set of assessment in very subtle changes in your patient that you don't develop anywhere else because you don't need it anywhere else. If I look at you and you're down on the stretcher and I say, "Hey, Jack, how you doing?" and you don't give me the same eye contact that you did 10 minutes ago, I need to be savvy enough to know that, well, maybe something's changing and it's just in front of the numbers. Because a lot of times if the numbers on the monitor change, if you've waited for that, you've waited too long. Because now you're going down a hole that I really have to swim fast to get you out of.
Wow. It's interesting to me as you talk about this, you talk about the drive that you possess to be in these situations that are challenging. You talk about that being the pinnacle of kind of the pre-hospital world or the hospital world. In a lot of ways, the tactical flight officer is in that same position as you, as far as that tactical flight officer wanting to be in these complex, dynamic, critical incidents. You do it so often, you live there so often, you become good at it. So interesting that the drive and desire to be in these complex situations is similar on your side as it is in law enforcement.
But let me turn it back to mental health for a second there, because there's a tender trap in that. Because we love the dopamine hit that we get from these things. We are all, it's probably a terrible way to put it, but we're all adrenaline junkies when it comes to that sort of thing. We wouldn't be sitting here if we weren't. But I think sometimes that becomes too much our happy place. I know it did for me, where a few years ago, well, number of years ago, the only time I felt like I had any control over my life was I was sitting in a helicopter 2,000 feet in the air with somebody trying to actively die on me. I could control that. And that's what kind of pushed me to getting my own journey of getting back to normal. Well, actually, it was my wife grabbing me by my lapels and telling me, "You got to do something different here, buddy."
As soon as you said that, John, I thought, how many times have I said, from the TFO perspective, I would have paid to be over the North Hollywood shootout. I would have paid to be over Florence and Normandy, the kickoff of the riots, to be that TFO. I would have paid whatever was necessary to be over certain events. Why? Because we have the same mindset. It tests you. Those were unbelievably fluid, critical incidents that required you to be at your top of your game.
Exactly.
And we all want that. It's why, well, the military is a great example. It's why so many, especially top tier military people that were in a lot of firefights, they get that dopamine dump that you just talked about, Dave. And now they come home and life's pretty boring, you know? And it's like, what? I want to go back. When do I go back to Afghanistan? I mean, average person says they're crazy, but that average person has never been in that dopamine dump. They've never experienced it. They've never felt it. So they don't understand it. And so that's why I think this is a good, say that again, Dave.
And the shared experience of the person you're there with.
Yes.
You know, which again is a tender trap because it can be misunderstood for many other things than it really is.
That's right. Which is perfect term for that. Yeah. It's a perfect term.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, but well, it is, and it is something that our families will never get. That's right. We're not gonna. Sarah and I have been married 49 years, and she's renowned a couple of times with me, but she doesn't get what it means to go in and hit your marks, do it exactly like you were saying, this fluid dynamic. Oh my goodness, if I don't do it right, a lot of people could get hurt. In our case, it's if you don't do it exactly right and you don't stay in front of it, somebody's going to die.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And if they don't understand that, sometimes we can mistake that for an attraction that isn't appropriate or isn't there. And two, it is that shared experience, and that's why sometimes our families feel left out in this, because you've probably been to functions with your spouses, and they're over in a corner talking to themselves, and you're trading war stories with your buddies. And I know I've done that, and it's and I know where the hard stop is in our house of telling war stories.
Yep.
It usually has to do with blood.
Yeah. My wife and I talked about this yesterday.
Oh.
Where with our realtor, where we were talking about an officer that we both know, our realtor knows, and I know, that we had just reconnected with. Anyway, we talked about how our realtor said, I don't know how you did it, Tracy, being the spouse. And I said, well, I'll tell you how she did it, Darren. It's because she didn't know what was going on. When I told her, I'm going to air support, I'm going to go fly in helicopters, she was not happy with me. She was like, oh my gosh, that is high risk. You're crazy. Oh no, I don't know if I want you to do that. And I stopped her and I said, if you knew everything I did in K-9 the past 5 years, you would be begging me to go to air support, begging me to leave. And she went, what? I said, Tracy, you don't know what I did the past 5 years. You know about a couple searches, and you know about me taking my dog to Special Olympics, and helping present medals. And you know about that stuff. You don't know the dark stuff at all. And air support is much safer than being a street cop, much safer than being a canine handler.
Oh, I bet.
In so many ways. Is there an inherent risk with flying? Of course, the three of us understand that risk. We accepted it, but we were able to mitigate and manage that risk so much better with training and doing things ahead of time. Whereas as a patrol officer, you're walking up to a door, or you're walking up to a car, or you're on a canine search and you're crawling under a house where there's an armed suspect. It's much more dangerous. But our families, we don't want to share everything for obvious reasons. We don't want them to have to go visit Tanya too. I mean, we're saving them from that. So I'm glad we talked about that. It's really interesting. It's the same in your line of work as it was in ours.
Yeah, absolutely.
So while we're talking about this stuff, we ask every guest, no matter what their field, to talk about their most impactful incident. And yours is going to be most impactful as a flight nurse.
Okay.
Limited to your flight nurse. And impactful is defined by Dave Wuertz. You decide what that word means. It can be anything you want, but most impactful as a flight nurse.
There's probably north of 1,000 of them to sort through.
I bet.
Kid calls in general are always difficult. I remember a wreck in Central Texas where several kids were killed in it. Our patient was on the cusp of dying. Difficult airway, got the airway secured. And then I realized that this kid had exactly, my older daughter has the thickest hair of any human being on her head. And she has these beautiful brown eyes. And this little girl was, they're probably separated by 20 or more years. But it was like I was taking care of my daughter. And it was hard. We did a debrief afterwards back in the old CISM days where everybody sat in a circle and had a talk. All of us loved those. But it was interesting to kind of process that outside of the event. And it was pretty impactful. Kid calls are always the ones that get you. Also had one just before I stopped flying. It was an older couple, and they were, probably 20 years older than us. Wife is in the throes of dementia. She doesn't really know exactly what's going on. The husband has a pretty significant brain bleed that probably was going to kill him. And just watching them navigate that, what was going to be an end of life and a complete change for the wife who didn't quite understand what was going on, was emotionally wrenching. So, it doesn't have to be the big, oh my goodness. Because in the big scheme of things, flying him from one hospital to another was pretty uneventful. Manage his blood pressure, make sure this didn't expand, his level of consciousness didn't change, pretty routine stuff. But that family changed, and you all have been to hundreds of those kinds of things, where you walk up and crunching through the glass and it's like, oh my, this family just took a 180-degree turn.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the business we're in. And it can be gut wrenching sometimes.
That's why it's so important to have programs like we're talking about, peer support programs that are robust and aren't reactively going after these situations, but proactively looking to take care of folks. So that, as I say, so when we get to the end of our career, we're happy and healthy and can go on with the things that we've wanted, up to that point. So,
yeah.
And I think you got to have a life outside of it. One of the things I preach about resilience is that you got to have a life outside of EMS. Whether it's faith, family, friends. One of the reasons I love living in Utah is I'm 40 minutes away from being thigh deep in a trout stream with a fly rod.
There you go. Yeah, that's your therapy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or walking Molly, my dog, around in the snow.
Yeah. Wow. And for those watching on YouTube, you see that Dave's our first guest ever that is out in a national park. It's unbelievable. He's out in a national park on his Starlink, apparently.
Yeah.
That he's in Zion, which is really cool. And afterward, he's going to go walk the Narrows, and everything's going to be really cool. But it's the best background we've had.
Yeah, I think it didn't blur enough. The program doesn't blur like Teams does.
No, it's great. It really looks like you're there.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's great. So you touched on this in your opening a little bit, but we'll take a little bit deeper dive. You were a founding member of the PHI peer support team.
Mm-hmm.
What made you personally want to get involved? And I'll preface that by saying, I'm sure you knew very well, if I get involved in this, I'm going to be exposed to additional stresses
Yeah.
that I'm not experiencing, but everybody around me, I'm going to be reliving their experiences. I'm going to add to my own stresses. It's one of the things that amazes me about Tanya and all people in her field is that they have chosen a profession where they're going to hear the worst stories every single day. Well, now you knew that going in, but you still decided, nope, this is important. And I'm going to be one of the advocates to get this going. What was it that drove you personally to get involved in this and to push it so hard?
Thank you to our sponsor, Centum. Airborne operators know that every second counts. LifeSeeker is a powerful phone location tool helping search and rescue teams and law enforcement agencies locate missing persons faster, even in the toughest conditions. With hundreds of successful missions every year and proven reliability, LifeSeeker is trusted by public safety agencies worldwide. Want to improve your operations? Learn more at Centum.com.
One, I wanted to give back because I'd been through a bunch to this point. I'd seen things that had worked. I'd seen things that hadn't. The flippant answer is it's, 25-ish years of ground EMS experience and all of the dents and dings that can give you. And seeing it evolve from the 70s to, the 20s was part of it.
Yeah.
I knew that we were going to be doing something pretty cool. I didn't, honestly, I didn't know Tanya was going to be part of it until I got to training. And it's like, Tanya, I haven't seen you in years. How you doing? Because I'd worked with her very closely in setting up the program for Austin EMS.
Right.
And we were actually her first customer.
Oh, wow.
So long story longer, it was going to be something I wanted a chance to really kind of get back. And at that point, I knew I was at least halfway past the middle of my career. And it was a good opportunity to build something. I've always been interested in building things, whether it's with my hands or with organizations.
Did you have any idea, thinking back, the years ago that it would grow to where it is today?
No.
Was it even a goal? I mean, did you say, oh, this is, or has it gone way beyond anything you ever imagined?
It's gone so far beyond what I thought it was capable of doing. And being able to be in an organization that values safety, and they see peer support as a safety thing.
Oh, it is. Absolutely.
And being involved in an organization that is willing to put their money where their mouth is about it is really rewarding. I could have walked away and retired 4 years ago, and it would have been fine. We were in a good place to do that.
Yeah.
But this has been the best 4 or so years of my career, bar none.
That's cool. That's amazing.
Bar none.
Now, it wasn't all unicorns and rainbows, I'm sure.
I'm sure it was. Come on.
What about the hurdles? There have to be some hurdles and some of them were probably as big as those mountains over your shoulder that you had to overcome to establish the peer support unit and to keep it going. Yep. What were some of the biggest that you can talk about? Well,
just convincing people that we weren't out there to collect information to get rid of you. Yeah, we weren't out there to find out your dirty laundry so we could tattle on you.
Right.
We weren't out there to be nosy, that we were sincere in what we wanted to do. And it took 4 or 5 years of pushing it out in the organization, earning people's trust, and being able to follow through on what we said we were going to do. And it wasn't just me. I mean, there were the whole team that we had, and there's, beside Tanya, one guy and myself who were originals. Everybody else has turned over in the 12 or 14 years since then. I guess it's 15 years now. Anyway, and consistent. Now we were blessed and are blessed with uh, senior leadership at the time was who wanted this, and it is continued through leadership changes. They see the value in it, and they support it, and they want to make sure that it doesn't go by the wayside. So that was huge. But just convincing people that we were sincere,
Right.
and having the same message and doing it, and it took a while.
I would say that and John, you jump in here too, that a lot of people we talk to about this online, offline, that what you just said, Dave, is astounding to them, because the hurdles that many people deal with are with the organization resisting it. Whereas you didn't experience that. You had an organization that was pushing it and wanted it.
Yeah.
Is that, John, did I misspeak there? Is that your experience too?
Yeah, no, my experience is unique because I started with San Diego PD, and in my third month of FTO training, I was involved in a shooting. So I was assigned a peer support officer. His name was Chris Wilson. He was later shot and killed, actually in October of 2010. He was shot and killed executing a warrant. But Chris's impact on me getting through that incident was amazing. And then I leave San Diego, go to Ontario, who didn't have a program really. There was a little bit of a peer support program at the time, but leadership wanted one, and I, like you, volunteered because I had seen the benefits of the peer support program that was established at San Diego PD. So I decided, hey, I'm going to help at Ontario. And just like you described, leadership wanted it, but the troops not so much. It was kind of, there was a stigma associated with it.
Yeah.
I think there was a mindset that it's something that if you're weak, you want. If you're weak, you're going to go seek the help of peer support. They didn't, because they hadn't seen the benefits of the program in the way that I had. So it took, and it's still taking time to develop the trust that is required. So I would speak to the agencies of the folks that are listening that don't have a program, that want to develop a program like Dave's talking about, like I'm talking about at San Diego PD. Know that the work you put in to do that, the benefits that will come from that are amazing. You'll change people's lives, and it's hard because you might face a little bit of ridicule and some distrust, but at the end of the day,
part of the Hug Squad.
Yeah, there is that, but to know that you're making an impact in people's lives in a way that couldn't have otherwise been done, I think can't be overstated.
And what you were saying about, John, after the job, one of the things that Tanya talks about is public safety is not a job. It's a lifestyle. And when you leave the job, you have to have the infrastructure in place to survive that. Literally survive that. And maybe more so for law enforcement than EMS related things. And I think having a strong peer support infrastructure can help prepare for that. And I would really encourage anyone, because I did this myself, to actively plan what post public safety is going to look like, and how that looks for you, whether it's new hobbies, getting involved in public events, or whatever it is, volunteering.
Creating a podcast, maybe. Creating a podcast, maybe.
Yeah.
John.
Yeah.
Whatever it is. For me, I'm just involved with it enough that it hasn't really cut the umbilical cord, and maybe that you all see the same thing. And since you're around people who are actively doing it all the time, and you have the credibility that they don't see you as an outsider. And that's me now. The folks at PHI don't see me as an outsider. I probably have a couple of years left of that kind of credibility. Probably also ought to really consider retiring for the third time. But the point is I think there is so much good done by a strong peer support team, but it's hard to quantify. you know, and if you're trying to justify it to people who are only numbers people, you gotta think that through.
Yeah.
And for us, it is ultimately less expensive to help people continue their career. It is a better business decision to have people who are happy and healthy and not being jerks to our customers. And potentially so distracted that they could be harm to a patient, so it's a good business decision. I think it's a good business decision anywhere. I know the International Association of Chiefs of Police, they have a really good paper about peer support and the need for it. In fact, I just helped write one last year for one of the Air Medical Nursing Associations, and we used that one mightily as a template for how we did the ASTNA one.
Wow. You mentioned job versus lifestyle, and I talk about this regularly because I in instructing, I'm exposed to recruits at an academy. I'm exposed to a lot of young officers in a classroom setting, teaching tactics, and I have seen that attitude in a younger generation that it's a job. And I, at every chance and opportunity that I get, I try and stress to them, you better look at this a little differently because you're going to be immersed in events that you have no idea what you're about to do. You think you do, but you don't. None of us did, you know, and it's going to affect you. You've got to front load some of this and be more prepared and take your job more seriously. And it should be more of a lifestyle where you read, eat, drink, everything to be at your best. You work out, you do all these different things to be prepared for what you're going to face. And much of it is unknown. And I see the resistance. So they go, it's not a big deal. They're going to find out the hard way. I mean, it pains me that they're going to find out the hard way because you don't have to, you know.
They're not going to have a tribe if they don't. And how do we survive these things? We survived them by sitting on the back bump of an ambulance crying with my friends. Yeah. We all did it, at scenes where the unspeakable was there.
Yeah.
And same thing. And I'm so happy that we are finally beginning to talk to each other about these kinds of things because, it's a different context, but it's the same yuck that all of us have to go through.
Right. This question might be a little bit more challenging. I'm going to ask you the impactful question again, but related to your peer support, because the reason I say it might be more difficult is because, you can't give details of this stuff and you're going to have to dance around it a little bit, but can you generalize an incident and talk about the most impactful peer support situation that you've been involved in? And again, impactful is your definition.
Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160 plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
That's easy. Honestly, it's an easy answer because it was the scariest thing I've ever done. Having who knows how many EMS responses I've had in my career, but walking around this backyard on a phone with somebody threatening suicide and trying to manage that situation while trying to get them help was very impactful. And things went well. He did not, thank you. And we got help and he got through it and came out on the other side and did well. But I'd a whole lot rather pull up on a wreck in the middle of the night than do that again.
Oh, I'll bet. That's hard.
Yeah,
that's hard. I can't even imagine having to do that. Wow. Let's take a look at in the time that we have left here.
Sure.
We got a bunch of stuff to talk about yet, but it's time to talk about PHI Air Medical.
Okay.
So tell us about this organization, this company, PHI Air Medical, number of bases, aircraft, patients a year, all the stats that you want to share with us about this PHI.
PHI Air Medical is part of a umbrella company, PHI. It started in Lafayette, Louisiana, in the oil field, and until for the longest time, it was moving people and parts in the offshore oil industry. And then a number of years ago, I should know that number off the top of my head. I don't. They got into the aeromedical business. We're known in the industry as one of the safest companies out there. Safety is not a slogan; it is really pushed and believed. We have 12.5 million flight hours as a company. We have 84 bases around the country. One of the things they do for safety is we do some fatigue management. We start every day with what's called a PVT test. It's basically a reaction time test. And then there are different times that you have to do that throughout the day, particularly overnight. The pilots, of course, work 12-hour shifts. The med crews are on 24s. Absolutely encouraged to pull yourself out of service if you are fatigued, and there's no fault, no foul in that. I have never, in the almost 25 years I've worked there, had somebody give me a hard time about turning down a flight for weather. We have a 4 to go, 1 to say no policy, and that we really believe that and preach that. And what that means is the three crew all have a say. And then at certain times, there's a mandatory fourth person in there who is a non-flying pilot at one of the communications center, who also has to, if it's weather yellow, and that can be a little different for each base, but if the weather is yellow, then that non-flying pilot has to be part of the decision process. Even if it's an IFR flight, they have to be part of that because, of course, there's minimums and alternates and all that stuff that IFR just adds a level of complexity. It's wonderful to have that in your hip pocket, but the level of complexity that it gives to an EMS flight is a lot, because most hospital pads don't have an approach into them. Now, some do,
right?
But that's most of the time you can be landing at an airport and ground pounding back or forth from the hospital.
What is that? Let me pause you, Dave. You talked about this fatigue reaction test. I don't know what that is because my department didn't care about me at all. And had they known how tired I was sometimes flying in their helicopter over the city of Los Angeles, they would be astounded by that. But what specifically is that test?
I wish I could be more specific because I don't know it well because it was being introduced about the time I was getting out of the operations side of things. Okay. But it is a reaction test that is done on an iPad or your phone. It can be on your personal phone. And basically, when you come in the morning, you do a benchmark test. Assuming you pass that, then go there. And then after certain times in the evening, you do another test just to kind of check in and see how your reaction is. And it's a measure of fatigue. It's required at the start of every shift. You can't, at this point, I don't think you can even start your shift unless you have logged a PVT test.
PVT?
Yeah. And I knew if I'd be in trouble. Sorry here, guys. I don't know what PVT is.
That's okay. I wouldn't even know there was a test. John, have you heard of this, John? I mean,
no, that's very interesting. I haven't heard of that before in law enforcement anywhere.
No, they didn't care about you either, John.
Yeah. I think I think some of the small military teams, the special ops guys use it sometimes. I don't pretend to know much more than it was a test I had to take every day. And apparently let me fly.
I'm guessing it's going to be a screen with dots that appear and you got to touch them or something like that, right? Where it's checking your reaction time to
exactly
acknowledge what you're looking at, get your finger to it, touch it properly. I'm guessing that's
and I think
ballpark of what it is.
we had 5 misses, and then you had to retake it.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's really cool.
Bad reaction times was not necessarily a perfect.
Yeah. John's a big F1 Formula One fan. You've seen the drivers before they go out for the race. Yeah. They're doing the balls that they're dropping, and they have those. They're like they look like icicles, and they're hanging, and they're standing, and they drop them at different rates, and you got to be able to grab it. So, they're sharpening their skills. I got to get into the mode that I'm about to be in at 200 miles an hour. So this is interesting.
Best standby I ever did was F1 in Austin. Great fun.
Oh yeah, I'll bet that was a great gig. Yeah, that's a great track, huh? Well, you anything else about PHI you want to share?
100 plus helicopters. Oh, one thing that was interesting, 2 years ago, our board of directors asked that the air medical side help the oil and gas division build their own peer support team. So I've been actively involved in that for the last 2 years, 3 years, and they have a team of about probably around 20 people, and mostly based in Lafayette and Houma, and then over on the Galveston side of the Gulf. And you wouldn't kind of at the front end of it think, well, what's the stress of that? Well, they're much more designed as an airline than we are. So there's unique customer demands. There's a lot of IFR flying, out into the Gulf. And they're flying some big iron, 92s and big Leonardos. They have a 160 now, which I still lust over getting a ride on sometime.
Yeah, those are beautiful aircraft.
Yeah,
they are. Well, it's incredible, that thing.
It's pretty sexy. I gotta say. Yeah. So anyway, we've rolled it out to the oil and gas side of the house, and it's been pretty successful over there. They do. They don't have the volume of responses that we do on our side, but they've had some good interventions that have really helped some folks.
Yeah. That 160, that might have been PHI's 160 on the floor of Verticon last year. Was it, John?
Yellow and black one?
Yeah.
Yellow and black, yeah.
It was
that should have been about the time. Yeah, that should have been about the time it was coming to us.
I remember standing there just looking at it going, wow, it's so big, and the colors and the interior, and you just so I understand, Dave, that you want to hop in one of those. I do too.
Yep.
John,
I'll just sit in the back. You don't even have to let me sit up front.
I'll sit in the back.
Yeah, I'll be fine. Just take me somewhere. Great. I mean, it only probably costs what, $8 million a second to operate. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not cheap, that's for sure.
Yeah.
You mentioned one of the quotes that I wanted to ask you about, and maybe you can touch on it again. 4 to go, 1 to say no.
Sure.
That's an important concept that you're trying to instill into the culture at PHI. Mm-hmm. Can you expand on that a little bit, or the importance of that? Sure.
It is. I mean, for me, it has always been the bedrock of what safety is. Mm-hmm. That I am not. I facetiously said a trunk monkey, but I am not somebody. Frankly, I've never understood an air medical crew member who is willing to climb into a helicopter without looking up at the sky and talking about weather with the pilot, and particularly in a VFR program, and understanding what that means. Understanding that the temp and dew point is 1 degree apart, and what that potentially may mean.
Yeah.
So at PHI, it's been the bedrock. It's not unique to us. I mean, other vendors have 4 to go, 1 to say no. It means that for any reason, any of the 3 crew can say no, not going. Quick story. This was early-ish in my career, and the pilot, and we had the numbers. Everything looked okay. Central Texas, and if you know Central Texas, it's humid and sweaty all the time. And we're walking out to the aircraft, and we kept kind of looking up at the beacon on top of the control tower, and you could see, when the white beacon came around, you could see visible moisture. And we asked each other, I don't know, 3 times before we got to the aircraft, are we okay? Everything good? And I finally just stopped and said, guys, if we're talking about this much, why are we going?
Mm-hmm.
And we literally, it looked like the Three Stooges. We kind of ran into each other when I said that. And the pilot said, you're right. We're done. We went back in. Nobody said a word. Company didn't say a word about that being a bad thing. And as I recall, eventually it did fog in. But the temp and dew point actually were pretty separated at that point. It was within parameters.
Yeah. But
the fact that we were all looking up and looking at that light and seeing visible moisture, it's like, something. The numbers are important, but they're not everything.
Yeah. Understanding your local operating environment.
Yeah, exactly.
What weather hazards to look out for and when, and all that stuff's so important.
And just knowing the terrain, and what's sticking up out of the ground. And, because there's here, I look around here in Salt Lake, and it's like there's a lot of stuff to run into. There's, granite air everywhere. But I flew all of my time in Central Texas where there wasn't anything God made more than 200, 300, 400 feet in the air.
Right.
But there was a whole lot of man-made stuff that was,
those antennas in Texas are like, they look like Mount Everest.
Yeah. There's some on the way up from Temple to Waco that it's like, those are helicopter eaters.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then the fourth person is, again, a non-flying pilot at one of our communications center that has to approve is the wrong word, but the pilot and the non-flying pilot at the comm center talk about risk versus reward and all those kinds of things.
Yeah,
and the other thing I want to emphasize is the crews leave the pilot alone as they're making the weather decision. That's theirs to make. Then it's ours to discuss. And when I was a base supervisor, I really enforced, you leave our pilots alone while they have to make a weather decision, particularly because we were an IFR base. If they're doing flight planning and all that, they don't need you looking over their shoulder and saying, have you seen that weather? Have you? Yeah. And everybody, of course, now has weather apps on their phone. So everybody's smarter than everybody else.
Yeah.
And
everybody's a weatherman now.
Yes, everybody is. But I think it just comes down to, you don't just, and if they're young, if there are people that are thinking to get into the industry, my advice is, don't become a passenger. When I get on Delta in 2 weeks to go to another work trip, the pilot and I don't have a discussion.
Yep.
If I don't like the weather, I have a choice of not getting on, and I've not gotten on flights before because nope, I'm not going to fly out of here on that.
Yeah.
But when I was a crew member, I had a vested interest in it, much more vested interest. And I think it's important that people understand the difference between being a passenger and being a crew member. And pilots need to decide, do that too. Every once in a while you get pilots who come in and say, just sit down, shut up, and don't bother me. It's like, oh, no.
No, that's not the pilot I want to fly with.
Nope, thank you.
Thanks to our sponsor, Summit Aviation, a full-service provider for business, government, parapublic, and military aviation, specializing in maintenance, modifications, avionics, interiors, and paint. Discover more at summit-aviation.com.
Yeah, this is a good conversation. So important because there's a lot of catchy phrases and stuff and safety and stuff,
Mhm.
but they're worthless. They are completely worthless
Absolutely.
if you don't live by that saying. If you live by it, that's the purpose, you know. And 4 to go, 1 to say no is a good example. Like you said, I've heard that before, but everybody has a different take on it. And some places, I've heard people say this, oh, we have that saying too. We don't live by it, but
Yeah.
it's on the poster, you know, and you just, well, that's trouble.
Yep.
That's trouble right there, you know?
That's trouble just waiting to happen,
Yeah.
because you end up pushing things,
That's it.
you know.
Yeah.
You end up pushing weather, you end up pushing, you know, because you can't take pressure to fly away fully.
Yeah.
I mean, you just
Yes.
can't.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the call volume at the base. You can't change that. Everybody knows that that's a customer who you've had to turn down the last 3 flights because it's spring and they just breed thunderstorms over that city.
Yeah.
You know, so we're going to do it this time. No, we're not. You know, I used to love to say to people, Mr. Newton doesn't care.
That's right. That's right.
Gravity is a law that we all are going to obey.
One other quote that was on the website, I just wanted to get the Dave Wuertz take on it. The best moment in somebody's worst day. I mean, that's something you've done a career of that. Talk about what that means to you.
I think we got to start with that assumption. You know, we're in the business of being there on an abject stranger's worst day ever, whether it's that person or their person's family or whatever. I think what we try to do is to bring excellent ICU level care to the side of the road or to community hospitals where that care may not be available. And we have to remember that it isn't, they are doing their darndest to help this patient, and we're just part of that. We're not there to be the saviors. We're there to bridge from that hospital to the tertiary care center.
Yeah.
So we really want to do, and that also just means being nice to people. When I was in ground EMS, I used to kid people all the time and say, you know, really, there's only one other person there who understands whether you're competent or not, and they're dressed like you are.
Yeah.
You know, the family, come in and be nice to them and don't knock the lamps over or ding up the furniture as you bring the stretchers through the door.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it doesn't take much. Just be nice.
It doesn't. Do you remember your first flight as a flight nurse? The first time you were in a helicopter?
I wasn't. I stole a ride with St. Louis Arch when I worked in St. Louis County. So I did a ride out and I was hooked. It was like, I'm done. I don't know that I recall my first flight.
Interesting. So it wasn't, you've had so many, they all play together. I always ask that, and then I think how silly it is, because over the years, you know, I've had officers that I met that I did not know, and then I meet them later in career, and they go, "Oh, Jack, you did a canine search for me. Yeah, it was at this street, you know, and this," and I go, "Oh, okay." You know, I don't know. I guess I did. You know, they all blend together. You know, so I get that, but I have one more thing before I turn it to John and for a wrap up here. You've had an amazing career. I mean, you have really done a lot. A very long career of public service in the medical field, and you've done many significant things within that career. What are you most proud of, Dave? If you had to pick one thing and you said, that's what I'm most proud of, what is it?
What I'm doing now. Easy.
Yep.
Easy.
I figured
By
that.
far and away. You know, one of the things is and Jack, you may understand this better than John, although John has a hat on, maybe there's gray hair up under there. At least you have that, right?
John's a youngster. He's a youngster.
Okay. I think as you get older, wanting to give back to an organization or to a career that's been so good to you becomes more and more important. And As cliche and as kumbaya as that sounds, that's really the truth.
It is.
And so this has been fun. This has been such an honor to be able to help my peers. And many of these people I've worked with for 20 of those 25 years.
Yeah.
Particularly if I'm dealing with folks in Texas. So it's been nice ride and a good way to close it out. I'm not going to do this forever. Eventually Sarah's going to make me stay home.
Dave's kind of the Tony Weber of flight, flight air medical. It's tough to leave. It's tough to leave.
I have failed miserably at maybe 3 retirement.
It'll come. The day will come where that's what happened to Tony too.
Yeah.
John, closing thoughts or anything that we want to do to wrap up here?
Yeah, Dave, I'll ask you a question and then I'll follow that question up, give you time to think about it as I kind of give my spiel. My question for you is for the folks that are wanting to start a peer support program, what advice would you have for them as they navigate that? And as you think through that, I'll just, for you agencies that may not have a peer support program, if you find yourselves, especially within aviation, needing the services of peer support program, Echo has a fantastic peer support program called the FAST team. Their FAST program, there's a bunch of information online. You go to echoflightcrew.com/FAST to go to that. They have a hotline you can call if you need somebody to talk to. It's 1-833-AIR-FAST. They're a fantastic organization. They also put boots in the ground after aviation mishaps. Dave, you talked about earlier on when you're involved in a critical incident, wanting somebody who can understand the situation that you were just involved in to be there with you. So even if you do have a peer support program, but you decide, hey, we just had a mishap, I would like some aviation peer support folks there, reach out to the FAST team. They're fantastic, have resources that will be very valuable following an aviation mishap or accident. So just my pitch for the FAST program, and Dave, I'll turn it back to you to kind of touch on the development of a peer support program.
Well, and I would echo too what you said with no pun intended.
Oh, I got that one. Hey, I got that.
Sorry. That was inadvertent. Dad jokes abound. That FAST is a great resource, particularly if you don't have resources in your area. We routinely help customers with events, and are happy to do that. And anybody who would like, so how do you start a peer support team? Well, that's kind of the $1 million question. I think you got to have some evangelists in your organization. You have to have some people who, this isn't just, well, that sounds like a good idea, who, and look for the people who have gone through it yourself, like you did, John. You, with your officer involved shooting early in your career, you knew what it could do to help. And look for the folks who have been through it a minute and aren't grizzled by it. And then sit down with management and actually talk through it and see what that does. I'll be happy to give you some pointer. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, do that. I'll be happy to help give some guidance and advice. There's nothing magical about it. There's lots of different ways to do it. I mean, the IAFF and the fire service has a great program. Like I said, the Chiefs Association does, but I think that tends to be more a white paper and not necessarily a requirement, where the IAFF stuff is actually through the union. So it has a broader reach, is what I'm trying to say. And then don't give up. Just don't give up. Keep pushing it. It's worth it. It's worth it for your own sanity. It's worth it for your own safety, and it's worth it for the organization's safety.
Yeah. Love that. It's really cool talking to you and hearing your insight and your experience as you've been a part of this program and development of this program. You've helped uncountable number of folks, through your services and your impact on the industry through not only this podcast, but just your involvement as a whole is outstanding. Yeah. So thank you for doing all those things. Yeah. Very, very cool.
It's been an honor to be here too. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dave. I'll just start by this. Tanya, we owe you a dinner of your choice. I mean, I knew it when I talked to Tanya and she said, "Oh, you got to talk to Dave Wuertz." I go, "Okay, tell me about Dave Wuertz." And she told me, I said, "You know what? I have to talk to Dave Wuertz." I mean, it was very clear to me from the opening talking to Tanya about it. And then when you and I chatted, I knew what Tanya was talking about. And so that's why I was so excited about today. And you are a busy guy, and
I am.
we got it done, and we're so thrilled that we were able to do this and continue to our conversation on mental wellness and peer support and these things that are oftentimes overlooked or just kind of block them because I don't like talking about that. Well, you have to talk about it, and so we're really excited that you agreed to join us. Your background's amazing, and you. Just imagine how many lives you've impacted as a flight nurse, and now with your involvement in peer support. I mean, it is countless. John said it. It is, which is really something special. So,
thank you.
Dave, thank you very much. For those listeners that want to learn more about PHI Air Medical, PHIAirmedical.com. Go to PHIAirmedical.com. Great website, by the way. The PHIAirmedical.com website is really, whoever did it, they should be very proud. It's a really neat website to navigate and learn things, and it's much more than I expected. So I was impressed with that too. I've been impressed with a lot of things today, and this conversation went beyond what I even imagined, and that's because of you, Dave. It really is. It's because of your experience, and you're willing to share it. And you share it in such a genuine, passionate way. So, Dave, thank you very much for joining us on the Hangar Z. And with that, thank you to all our sponsors. Thank you to MHM. Thank you for all of our loyal listeners. We really appreciate it. We love bringing this type of conversation to you because we know it'll help people. We know it. And don't ever hesitate to reach out to John and I too. No one is alone. You are never alone. And with that, stay safe, and we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Hangar Z podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe to hear more stories that promote the personnel and equipment behind the missions in public safety aviation. Lastly, stand by for a message after a word from our sponsors. Cheers. Thank you to our sponsor, Metro Aviation. Metro Aviation, the world's largest family-owned air medical operator, offers comprehensive aircraft services with 160-plus aircraft in over 25 states. The Completion Center installs medical and law enforcement kits and avionics, serving diverse aviation needs including offshore, utility, VIP, and corporate sectors.
Thanks to our sponsor, Summit Aviation, a full-service provider for business, government, parapublic, and military aviation, specializing in maintenance, modifications, avionics, interiors, and paint. Discover more at summit-aviation.com.
Thank you to our sponsor, Centum. Airborne operators know that every second counts. LifeSeeker is a powerful phone location tool helping search and rescue teams and law enforcement agencies locate missing persons faster, even in the toughest conditions. With hundreds of successful missions every year and proven reliability, LifeSeeker is trusted by public safety agencies worldwide. Want to improve your operations? Learn more at centum.com.
Thank you for joining us on the Hangar Z podcast. We hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dave Wuertz of PHI Air Medical. Dave's life of service is truly remarkable. His contributions in mental wellness and peer support have had a great deal of positive impact on the air medical community. We salute his tireless efforts in making peer support a priority at PHI Air Medical. Thank you for sharing your story and experience for all of us, Dave. We really appreciate it. This information crosses all bounds, and it's just as good for law enforcement, air medical, firefighting, and beyond. We hope you really got something out of this. We sure did. Stay safe, and we'll catch you the next time on the Hangar Z podcast.